Well, Andy Beal, it's so exciting to get you back on the show, and you're a mentor, you've become a friend, and someone I highly admire, so great to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me back. It's been a while.
It has. Yeah. But you've been speaking indirectly to me when I get stuck. I go, what would Andy do? So I just, go ahead.
And thanks to social media, we can still
stay connected as well, which is great. And Andy has written a number of books, and his latest book is Repped, which I recommend for all the people in my classes on building your reputation. And then he wrote the book Radically Transparent, and then still has one of the best reputation monitoring tools, a tracker, and then a blog that I follow, Marketing Pilgrim, is that right?
Yeah, I got a lot of things going on.
A lot of stuff going on,
yeah.
And he's also a gifted photographer, and every time he likes one of my photos, I go, whoa, hey, Andy thought that was a good one. So, well, great to have you here, and I really want to talk about this because, to me, you were the pioneer in saying, hey, transparency and reputation are really important. On the web, we need to pay attention to it. This is something we cannot ignore, and I saw it early on when my client told me to get on LinkedIn and tell them if it was worth their while around 2006, and I went, my gosh, the world's changing under our feet. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a newer world, and now thanks to your mentoring I think I have thousands and thousands of index pages of content, intentional, but I still meet people that don't quite get what to do here. And so I came up with a few questions I wanted to ask listening to your new book. And one of the beginning ones I wanted to address is the concern of balancing between putting yourself out there and personal safety, because that's usually what I hit up against. What do you mean you want me to put myself out there? Mm-hmm. And this really came to a focus point when I've met now with several parents who've done really good jobs in raising their kids to not put negative content online. Now they're going to school, and I go, well, what type of positive content do you have? Mm-hmm. And you'd think I was speaking Greek. It hadn't crossed their mind, because obviously it's tough raising a kid. So I want to talk about that balance between reputation and personal safety as a start.
Yeah, it's a valid question. Certainly, it's about taking control of the information that is out there. And so we're going to naturally publish our own information. We're going to post a Facebook page. We're going to do a tweet, whatever it may be. And so it's understanding how that impacts, how that affects our online reputation. And so it doesn't necessarily mean, when we say being radically transparent, to go back to the first book title, we don't mean reveal everything to everyone. That would be dangerous. But the information that you do put out there, is it authentic? Is it something that best represents you? Because if you don't put the information out there, someone else will, and they'll define your reputation. So there is a fine line. And so certainly I don't recommend that you put everything on the internet. I see a lot of times, for example, on Facebook, where I see friends of mine that have their full date of birth on their Facebook profile. And even something as small as that is somewhat taking a risk, because now you've given somebody with nefarious intentions an opportunity to have your full date of birth. So there is that fine line, but at the end of the day, we are in an internet world, and everyone from a prospective date, your future spouse, an employer, a business partner, they're all going to be looking at your online reputation. So you do need to kind of take some kind of control of that.
Yeah, well, that's, to me, the beginning piece is this idea of, to me, intentional content, but also use the word that we've heard now so much, authentic. And what I've learned is authentic has different meanings to different people. Mm-hmm. And if someone wasn't as fortunate to have good parents to guide them and give support, authentic really could be a stream of complaints about life itself.
All right.
So I want to define that authentic as well, because I'm finding that misunderstood even there.
Well, I think when we say authentic, an example of that is your reputation is only ever going to be as strong as your character. So what is your underlying character? And that's made up of who you are now, but who do you want to be in the future? How do you best represent yourself? And so a lot of college kids, for example, they may do great in school and may get great grades, but then they go out and party at the weekends, and maybe they drink a lot. Maybe they get wild photos posted to Instagram. And that is, in a way, authentic. Nobody's putting them in that situation. So you've got to think about, is that how I wish to be portrayed? And it's hard for us when, certainly I'm glad, and I'm sure you're glad, that when we were in college, none of this stuff existed.
Absolutely.
Right? So I mean,
my joke is I'd still be cleaning it up on Facebook.
Exactly. So we're grateful for that. But I mean, certainly those that are in college, they don't think about the ramifications of this. Fortunately, thanks to the awareness that you're bringing to people, parents educating their kids, and also a lot of case studies. We're seeing we're learning by other people's fallen example, and so that's helping everybody, especially those in high school and college, to realize maybe I shouldn't do this, or maybe I shouldn't at least put this online. But I've been to concerts where I've seen college kids out, and one guy's been absolutely hammered, and his friends takes a video of him and posts it to YouTube right there from his phone. So you have to ask yourself, authentic means, it is the complete makeup of your character. Your reputation is only going to be as good as your character. So you need to look at yourself and say, okay, let's be honest with myself here. Am I the kind of guy that someone would want to date? Am I the kind of guy that someone would want to employ? Yeah. And if not, think about how you can make those changes to your character.
And I think that's so important because the way I define it is thinking about what are you committed to? Who do you want to be known by in the world? Who do you want to be remembered by in the world? And doing your best to keep that front and center, because I have my own lazy version of me and complaining version of me that I monitor. Am I using Twitter just to rant? Or is this a constructive thing? And sometimes I hit it, and sometimes I think better of it even now.
Yeah. And I think with being authentic, you can still self-censor. I'm not. We don't say put all your ugly parts out there as well. Just that whatever you do put out there, don't fake it. Don't make yourself out to be someone that you're not.
It's interesting because I'm finding in working with multi-generations that, for example, LinkedIn, often the under 24-year-olds aren't realizing the value of LinkedIn, and the over 65-year-olds aren't. And they're they might wanting to be going to another career, or they happen to be one of those rare people with a secure job for a long period of time. So there seems to be a gap in there at both ends where they aren't teaching them this stuff and the importance of it. And I think that's really critical to work on it.
Yeah, I certainly at the younger end of that spectrum, it is vital. LinkedIn has replaced resumes. I mean, I don't even ask for someone's resume anymore. I usually ask them, can you send me your LinkedIn profile? Because not only does it give me the same information, but it gives me a little bit of social proof as well. I want to see what kind of endorsements they've got, what kind of skill sets that they're being recommended for.
That leads to my next question. One of the things you mentioned in the book that I think is so important is if you have an About Us page on a website, get your name on it, so that's content for Google to bring in and see. Now, there's a caveat to that, because as you know, Greg Harr and I have offered training and have a podcast on LinkedIn to Sales and training in LinkedIn for years, and we're pretty much teaching people that our choice is to make your profile summary first person personal, and our joke is if you meet people on the street and say, hey, it's good to meet Martin Brossman, then put that on your LinkedIn. So I wanted to ask you in person this, of the two of those.
Yeah, because we kind of somewhat come at this from a different
angle.
And keep in mind that for the most part, the advice that I give about LinkedIn or anything is to those people that are looking to improve their online reputation. And a lot of that centers around Google. And so Google's very dumb, and we need to convince it that a particular piece of content is about you. So writing any kind of profile in the third person is kind of like old school SEO. You're increasing your keyword density, but instead of your keyword being desktop computers or Raleigh real estate, it's your personal name. So that's the reason for that. But at the same time, if you're not trying to just get your LinkedIn page to rank well, then certainly, by all means, go ahead, write about yourself in the first person. There are plenty of places on LinkedIn that you will mention your name anyway, because it will say, Andy Beal's work.
Yeah, it's right at the top.
Right, so there's plenty of places. But for those that need extra help, for those people that want to try and move their LinkedIn page to be higher than a negative review or a negative page about them, third person is the way to go. But I don't think it matters too much. And I've seen a hybrid of that, where people have they've start off and they talk about themselves in the first person, very casual introduction, and then they almost kind of make a joke of, and now here's my formal bio, and they switch over to the third person. There's a clever way to do it.
It
You
is.
get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, I wanted to clear that up. And then you mentioned SEO, and this leads to my next question I have.
It's almost as if I've seen the questions.
That's right. That's right. And that is Google's Hummingbird update, which is really moving from a search engine to a knowledge engine, which we might want to define a little for people.
Yeah.
But that's a game changer for a lot of content on the web, with a system that's really building you as a node, and then building expert identity around you in a way it didn't many years ago use or have the tools or the I call it the first level artificial intelligence to do it. So in the area of reputation monitoring, how do you see Hummingbird update? And if you want to define it, that'd be great. Affects it as well.
You want me to define Hummingbird? It's SEO is right. Entire
That's
articles
right.
trying to define it.
Right.
So basically, my understanding of Hummingbird is Google's attempt to better understand natural language queries and not just pick out the individual keywords within those queries and say, okay, you mentioned, I'm looking for affordable real estate in the Beltline of Raleigh, and normally Google, prior to Hummingbird, Google would have picked out real estate Raleigh. Okay, and that they would have given you queries based on that. Now they're looking at the intent. They're looking at the word affordable, and they're understanding what inside the Beltline means. And so now they're trying to serve you a better set of results. And so that does have a little bit of ramification for reputation in terms of how you described it, yourself within the sphere of the industry that you work in, how you're connected, making sure that, for example, a long time ago I decided I'm not going to be associated with pure SEO anymore. That was my background, and I'd write articles about keyword research, link building, but it confused. Let me back to it. It diluted the reputation I was trying to build of being a reputation management expert, and so I backed off from writing about those topics. It's still a component of reputation management, but I don't get involved in the minutiae of SEO. And so that's allowed me to do is now everybody thinks of me as the reputation guy. I've not diluted that.
Yeah.
With Hummingbird, Google now can make that same exact association. And that's what you're trying to aim for, is to kind of build around you content that links and reinforces where you are in a certain industry or a certain niche that you're trying to position yourself for. In terms of actual keyword brand reputation queries in Google, not going to make too much of a difference, because most people are just going to type Martin Brossman in, or Andy Beal, or Lenovo, or whatever the brand is, and that's what they're going to type in. It gets a little more of a gray area when someone might start typing in, what is the current reputation for Andy Beal. So now Google starts looking at, okay, you're looking for freshness here. Here's some articles that were recent, kind of thing. So a few nuances there.
So this, to me, the big thing in studying Hummingbird was, have I been giving good advice in the past with this change, and this still apply? And your advice to me many years ago was create authentic, good content. And I my filter is from my commitment the best I can, not my complaints or my reactions. And that's what Hummingbird's looking for. It's trying to build what is the real identity of Andy Beal. Who does he relate to? Who are the people he's connected to? So to me, one of the things is this idea of building real relationships with the people you want to be part of online as well, feeds into it.
And you need to, it's a conscious effort for all aspects of your life, because there are going to be, how smart Hummingbird is to identify a query such as, what was Andy Beal's reputation 15 years ago? Which is a good query. I should probably go check.
Yeah. You got me wanting to look up to him myself right now.
Exactly. So it's still early days for Hummingbird, and Google is going to keep just turning the dials and refining this. And certainly I've noticed that they've, on the reputation space, they've gone from being they used to be very proactive, encouraging you to work on building your reputation. They dialed back a little bit of their language on their webmaster pages, just a little bit, but certainly as long as you're using full white hat and you're not kind of getting into any kind of link farms or anything like that, they want you to build out this profile, because you're helping to fill those pages and fill the void of when someone searches for you.
Which actually leads, the link farms leads me to another question. And since you wrote the first book, there are massive companies advertising, your reputation is critical online, call us and we'll save your reputation. And I've been, I'm sure the good ones, I'm just a little more reluctant. And with the change to Hummingbird, even more reluctant, because I've met some people who have done it. And I said, well, what did they do? They generated all types of content for us. They cleaned it up. And I'm going, wait a second. If Hummingbird's really looking at backlinks that are authentic, generally connected to the person, and it's truly starting to understand the persona of the business, this could get dangerous at point. And I want to get your impressions of that and views.
Well, so I mean, the industry has grown a lot from when I first got involved with it. It didn't, nobody knew really much about it. Now it's grown from a cottage industry to a fully fledged industry, and there are a lot of reputation management firms out there. Some that do great jobs and some that don't not so much. And it's just really you got to figure out which are the ones that are doing the right work and doing it the right way. Certainly, you need to look at how they're going to go about improving your reputation, because the old days of just putting up a lot of content linking to it
may have worked.
In the old days, for sure, yeah. And now it may still work now for a little bit. But you don't want to take a risk with that. It's really kind of like, when you think about it, it kind of is similar to taking a diet pill, right? So it's like, there are companies out there, $20, you can get a bottle of pills that claim to help you lose weight, and they may help in a little bit. But really what you need to do is hire a personal trainer and watch what you eat.
Lifestyle change.
And make a lifestyle change, right? So it's the same with reputation management. Be wary of these companies that say for $50 a month we'll improve your reputation. It's probably, you might get a little bit of benefit, but probably what you really need is you need to take a long, hard look at your character. You need to make changes to the way you do business, and you need to put the effort in to build that content like you've done to establish yourself as an expert.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because I still... I wrote a recent article called "There's an Invisible Dome Around Your Town."
Okay.
And there are reviews on it. And you need to make sure you know what those reviews are, because they can be hurting the town. Because as you know, I train all over the state, small and towns and counties, and really have a passion for the importance of keeping the soul of America alive there. And many have done great jobs at building their downtown, putting beautiful flags, but you look at the reviews and the content online, they haven't claimed their page, they didn't even know they should. This is, to me, not just the individual reputation, but the reputation of the collective of the business, the town and the county and the area.
Yeah, and a lot of local business starts online. People go online and they conduct searches to see whether or not there's someone that they want to do business with, whether they want to step in your store. Do you carry the product so a customer's happy with you? And so, a lot of local small businesses absolutely need to pay attention to their online presence, because that's where a lot of their potential customers are going to start.
I first noticed this years ago, and I tell the funny story. My wife, when we were dating, says, you need to Google your name. There are 132 posts online, which is kind of small now.
Yeah, right.
And I Googled it, and there was this crazy person that posted something negative about a product on Amazon using my name.
Oh, wow.
And I was horrified, and I went and found out it was me. I was a product. I had been late at night. I was, no beers, but I had really let them have it. Yeah. And it was a reflection to me of, oh my gosh.
You'll be surprised the number of times on Marketing Pilgrim we get requests from people to ask us to take down a comment they left years ago.
Right.
Because it shows up in their search results, and they went on a rant.
Yep.
And it makes them look bad, and they ask us to take it down. For the most part, we will, because I definitely don't want to add to someone's problems. But you have to be careful what you put out there, for sure. Yeah.
And so it really got me to think. I say the policy, and it might have been from your first book, but I say, when angry, stop typing. It's a good beginning. Get out and walk, cool down, and everything else, and find out what's going on.
At the end of the day, I don't mind you being angry and typing. Just unplug the internet.
Turn
off your Wi-Fi so you can't leave your computer.
There's another point you have, which I find people get a little confused on, and it's your motto: "Don't feed the trolls." And I love that saying.
Yeah.
But the problem that I see in implementing that with people is really understanding what is a troll.
Right.
Because it's from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And I'm a little, I really respect you as an expert on it, but I feel a little more conservative. I'd rather them post a few more responses than let something misunderstood as a troll. And I want you to comment about that, because that, and also define what we call a troll too, for those who haven't read your book.
Right. So a troll, we also define those as like a determined detractor. This is somebody whose mind you're not going to change, or somebody that's just really out just to kind of get a rise out of you and is just looking to engage you back and forth for no real reason other than to get your attention. And so you have to be careful with them. And it's also very subjective how you define them, because for a troll for you may be different than a troll for me. And even within a business it may be different. And so you've got to look at, who is this person? Are they a legitimate customer? Did they do business with us? Do they have a legitimate gripe? Do they have a complaint that potentially could spread to other channels and hurt our reputation? So you've got to look at all of these factors to see, should I engage or not? And sometimes, excuse me, sometimes there are certainly going to be the instances where even if they are a troll, they're saying something that is defamatory, and you perhaps need to kind of nip that in the bud. But a lot of times you'll find instances where people are just, they're looking to just have an argument for the sake of having an argument. The key thing is to avoid the continual back and forth,
right?
Especially if it's on a network or on a channel that you can't control, because the worst thing you can do is in their blog, for example. It's their blog, they've written something, and you go back and forth in the comments. You don't know how they're going. How long will it take them to publish your response? Will they publish it? Will they edit it? They have full control over the blog, so you've got to be careful there. Same with things like Twitter, back and forth. But there are certainly sometimes, I try to just diffuse it with humor as much as possible, because then you can get a sense of, is this something that you can nip in the bud, or are they a troll that are never going to be satisfied? Because most people, if you could be a little bit self-defacing with your humor and kind of let them see that you're not this brand or this person that's on a pedestal and you think so high and mighty of yourself, if you can kind of like, just kind of take the higher road and just kind of say a joke that's self-demeaning or something like that, or just give them a little bit of leeway, that's usually enough, and then you can kind of like close off the conversation.
Yeah,
So
I know you don't like the grits, but I grew up on those grits.
Right.
That's I'm proud of my mother's recipe. Some, for example, not with Rept. I mean, all the feedback has been fantastic, but just to give you a hypothetical, if someone come to me and said, I just spent $7 on the Kindle version of your book and didn't really get a whole lot out of it,
right. My advice would be, well, I hope you realize that you just paid $7.
Right.
Hopefully in all of the book, there was at least one nugget that you found that was worth that $7.
Sure.
If not, let me know and I'll give you your money back.
Sure.
Right? Because that's kind of like somewhat saying, look, I'm not gonna take personal offense that you didn't care for the book. I'm not gonna say, what are you talking about?
Sure.
The book's great, it's well researched, everybody loves it. I'm just not gonna acknowledge that. I'm gonna go where you're going and kind of just at least get you to realize some kind of truth that, look, you still only paid $7, and there's probably something in there that you did get value out of, right? Can we agree on that? And that usually kind of...
it's funny because I realize when I'm talking to people how many people get stuck in how to respond to reviews. Mm-hmm. And we're even working on a class project of an article on that to get them to think about it and produce it. And I noticed what's funny is, did you ever take Aikido at all yourself, or you at least knew of it, right?
Well, I studied martial arts, but not sure.
Okay. It's funny how many times I use what I call the Aikido approach to it.
Uh-huh.
And Aikido's all about redirecting energy.
Right. Yeah.
So it's never about attacking directly or defending directly. It's all where you're blending with them first. Mm-hmm. And I really realize that it is not a second nature thing. Even though someone may be good in person knowing how to handle it, when they get on the web they get a little confused. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could give some advice or some guidance of how to start in responding to negative reviews, because it's the way of life now. I mean, we care more about what anonymous people have to say than your marketing material in many industries today.
Yeah. And in Radically Transparent and Ripped, we kind of have a guide to respond in, but really what you're looking for is you need to understand the review first of all, right? So you take some time. Don't just have a knee-jerk reaction. Try to figure out, was it an actual customer? You know, because sometimes it could just be a competitor that's making something up. So you got to verify the information the best you can. And then you've got to take on board the complaint that they have. And for your response, what I normally would recommend is thanking them for caring enough about your brand to bring this to your attention. Because keep in mind, a lot of people that complain, for the most part, it's because they want you to do better. You've let them down, okay? My wife just, yesterday, we went to the Cheesecake Factory. And we normally have a fantastic experience there, but yesterday was not. And so my wife submitted a complaint to their website because she cares. She wants them to do better.
Right.
Okay, so you kind of thank them for bringing it to your attention. Secondly, if they've said anything positive at all, highlight that. Well, we're glad that you enjoyed your cheesecake that you had for dessert. You know, obviously that's something that we pride ourselves in. So you kind of highlight and accentuate anything positive they said. Then what you want to do is address the negative. We're sorry that the wait staff took so long to refill your drinks. Okay, so it's you're acknowledging, you're kind of repeating it back to them. Ideally, this is where that authenticity comes in. Your next response is to say something along the lines of, "This is certainly not up to our normal standards. This is not something that we would expect you to have as an experience at our restaurant." So you kind of let the person know that this was an anomaly. It's isolated, and it doesn't meet your standards. But it has to be true. Because if you've just got shoddy wait staff, you're not going to believe it. Yep. So you let them know, and then you let them know what steps you're going to take to make sure that it gets resolved, so that it doesn't happen again, but also so that the customer is happy. And then you try and take it offline, because whether it's in a Yelp review or some other forum or Facebook, you want to say, "Look, what I'd like to do is reach out to you directly, find out who the person was that you dealt with, and make it right for you. I want to give you a gift card. Your next visit's going to be on us." Something along those lines. Okay, the reason for all of that is, first of all, it shows that you care. So somebody else comes in and reads the reviews, okay? This is one of the most important things. Yes, you want to make that customer happy, and we can come back to that. Lifetime detractor is what I call. You want to make them happy, but you want to leave something for other people where they can see you cared. There were some positive things. The negative things, you are just as shocked by them as they are. You're going to fix it, and the customer you're going to reach out to that customer directly. That sends a strong message to anybody else that reads that negative review that says, "Oh, well, overall they've got a 4-star rating. This person wasn't happy, but they've responded. They're there. They're going to fix it. If I don't have quite the experience, at least I know they will rectify it and they will fix it. They're not someone who's just ignoring it." So that's kind of the approach that for the most part. And again, one of the huge caveats for reputation management, all subjective.
Yeah.
It's like...
It all depends.
It all depends. On the little minutiae of the details, my advice could be slightly different depending on the facts of the case. But that's a general outline of how I would respond.
And don't you think you get better as you do it? You just have to get... I mean, I remember I really got a reputation at IBM as the one who would go into screaming customers.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And you know why? Because I just took that on. And I said, I regret you had a problem. I'm representing the company, and I'm here to do whatever it takes to do it.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you just like in customers, you got to find out what they want. Well, we can't have that dialogue online. We really want them to contact us directly to have that dialogue.
Right.
Because we also don't want to put probably billboards up that say, "Hey, complain, you get a free meal here too."
Yeah, exactly.
So the wording is important, and I think you've done a good job in Radically Transparent, but you also have like a 3-step process right in the book that's similar to what you mentioned to go through to give people a guideline to get started.
Exactly.
I've already quoted that in class,
Awesome.
and I always give you credit, of course, but I think part of it is you got to go on the court and realize the reputation's usually beginning on a mobile phone. It's reviews. It's not even your website. It's not even your Facebook.
Yeah.
It's another location. And you got to think of where the boundaries of that dome are,
And we talk about in reps that your reputation actually that experience begins before they leave your premises, before the transaction's finished. A lot of people will go online to complain because they either felt like you didn't care during the transaction, or they couldn't find a means to bring up their concern during that transaction comfortably. And that's, some people just don't want. So, for example, opposite example to Cheesecake Factory, Firebirds.
Yeah.
I'm heading there tonight, another one of my favorite restaurants. The manager invariably comes around towards the end of the meal and asks if everything was okay.
He's timed it well.
I don't have to go looking for the manager if I'm upset. If I've got a problem, the manager will come. And there's been times where we've not actually complained, but our server has told the manager that our food was late, and the manager's come up and said, "I understand your food was late. Dessert is on us. We want to apologize for that." And I'm like, I didn't even complain yet. I wasn't even going to complain. So I think that, there's within the actual transaction itself, whether that's here's the name of the manager and his cell phone, or please don't leave our premises today if you're not happy. We want to make it right. Let them know how they can respond to you directly and make that complaint. And for my wife, she went to the Cheesecake Factory site, and I think there's a form where you can send in feedback. So there was that channel. If there hadn't been that channel, where's she going to go? Facebook, Yelp, make it all public.
And some places have just tougher times than others. I was actually at one restaurant. We had someone who had a chain, and I went to several. And in one restaurant, I heard two people clearly just trying to get a free dessert out of the place. Yeah. And I went, okay, somehow they've got a group of people that are coming for something deal, and you just hit a bad vector or something.
Yeah,
but you still have to do your best on it, and statistically, it's going to do better than the restaurant near you with the same problem, right?
It's
dealing with.
It's digital shrinkage.
Yeah.
In the retail industry, they factor in pricing for shrinkage, and that is when people just shoplift or employees don't run things through. They factor in that loss of income into their profit margin so that they account for that. Yeah. Well, it's digital shrinkage, so you've got to.
That's a great quote, because I used to run a Radio Shack, and we called it inventory shrinkage.
There you go.
When it walked out the door,
exactly,
we couldn't stop it. Yeah.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You need to factor in that some people are going to try and game the system. They're going to be like, I really think that wasn't cooked quite the way I like it. I was going to leave a Yelp review, but if you want to give me free dessert, I won't do that. Yeah. You're going to get some people like that, and they have to go home and live with themselves.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And they clearly don't care about their reputation.
There you go.
Because if I overheard them doing it, it would be the top thing. It's like don't come sit next to me at a coffee shop and just get water.
Yeah,
I'll probably say something. So advice of what do you do when there's no way to respond? It's on a third site. And you don't have any way to interact and respond. Where do you go from there? What is the tools that you can work with on that?
Well, there's a couple of approaches to that. One is you can just accept that you're not going to be able to do anything with it directly. So that then means you've got to build just a great reputation and build out content that you do have control over to try and suppress it or surround it or balance it out to some degree. The other way is to actually try and find an offline way to reach out to somebody. So that may be looking up the who is information for the website owner, finding their email address or telephone, calling them and say, hey, look, I saw the way you wrote this review. There were you don't have comments on your blog, but I just wanted to kind of reach out to you, and then the same kind of type of approach as we've already discussed. So that, you can certainly look to reach out to those people if you can find it. But there are going to be some times where you're just not going to be able to do anything with it. A lot of review sites now, they'll have like an official means for the business to register so they can go in and leave a comment so that you can have your say. And certainly, again, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can have a back and forth with them. So you want to go in and just have your say, but in a way that, again, lets everybody else know this is not acceptable, we're going to deal with this, that kind of thing. But yeah, there are going to be some things where you can change, some things where you can't. There's been situations where I've reached out to people because something was outdated, and I wanted to let them know and ask them if they could possibly change it. So you'd be surprised. For the most part, you can reach out to people. Now, if it's one of these determined detractors that's just got it in for you, you may just have to accept that it's going to be there.
Yeah.
And then you can then you've got to have your talking points for if a customer brings it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, I saw this negative review written by this blogger, and you're like, well, here's the
We
facts.
made
of that
every
situation.
effort.
Yeah.
We couldn't contact him.
Yeah.
He just is not going to accept anything. We're not good enough.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
And there are sometimes as well where it's like a competitor or
Mm-hmm.
a disgruntled employee or a jilted lover or something like
Right.
that, right? And so you need to explain that as well. Now, of course, if it's defamation, that's a whole different ballgame, because if it's defamation, you don't even need to have the name. It can be an anonymous blog that's behind a proxy, and the name, registration details are not public, and you don't know who wrote it, and it's just there, sitting there. You can, if it's defamation, you can still sue John Doe without knowing their name. Go to the judge, present your facts. Obviously, you can then try and get a subpoena to get that information from the hosting company, to try and get it. But if you can't get it, you could still get a court order from the judge that says, yep, this is defamation, it needs to be removed. Then you can submit that to the hosting company, you can submit that to Google, and you can get it removed that way. So but the thing is that the standards for defamation vary, depending on whether it's an average Joe like you and I, or if you're a Hollywood movie star or a politician. The standards are a lot higher to actually have something that's defamation.
Otherwise, there'd be no political ads.
exactly, right? They got to protect themselves.
Right, they've got to be able to insult the other guy
Exactly.
instead of bring up their own case.
There you go. So, certainly, there's some good attorneys out there that specialize in this kind of stuff and can kind of, help.
What's kind of a general idea of where that line starts crossing, in your view? I mean,
for defamation.
For defamation, yeah.
Well, really, if they start presenting lies in the guise of facts.
I got it.
Right. So if they start making claims that I sent Andy Beal $2,000 to work on something, he took the money, I never heard from him. Well,
Sure.
if I've never even worked with this guy,
that would be pretty clear.
That's pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
Things that aren't defamation are opinions, and someone's review of your services where it's somewhat subjective. However, though, you can't just say like Andy Beal is a liar and took Andy Beal took $2,000 and in my opinion is a liar and cheating scumbag.
Right.
You can't just add in my opinion.
Right.
To get away with anything. Yeah.
Right.
It's still, and the other part of it as well is that generally you have to be able to show that it has damaged you in some way. Mm-hmm. So if someone actually puts online and says Andy Beal is a unicorn,
right,
I can't really sue him for defamation for that, right?
Right.
For one thing, it's a little bit satirical, so that kind of has some leeway as well. But the other thing as well, it's like, well, how am I being damaged by that? Nobody in their right mind will believe I'm a unicorn. So you have to prove that as well.
There's been some cases where customers wrote negative reviews and they got sued.
Oh, yeah.
And that concerns me because I want to see, I do believe there's value in freedom of press. I do believe some people need to clean up their act.
Right.
I believe social media is a way to get some of the dark carried to the light.
Right.
And so my advice to them is be careful and pick your battles carefully and really speak from your own experience and facts. Is that your direction, to attempt to not get outside of, we asked for this, we got this, we had this problem.
Documentation and communication are key in a lot of those situations. If you look at a lot of litigation between a contractor and a homeowner, for example, a lot of it takes place because it wasn't a clear-cut contract as to what was going to be done, when it was going to be done, when was the money going to be paid, that kind of stuff. It was here's an estimate, we're going to do the work, and everybody just agrees on that. Well, that's kind of up in the air as to what the actual terms are. So clear documentation is key, and then clear communication, and so you verbally, okay, when are you going to get started on the home extension? Okay. What date will the foundation be in, right? So you got to get that and then document it. And so a lot of documentation so that you can then go back to them and say, look, you've clearly not delivered on what you said you were going to do, and I need you to do this, this, and this. So you've got specifics. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the Better Business Bureau. I'm going to write a Yelp review, and I'm going to speak to my attorney about, getting some money back from you. So communication and documentation are usually pretty important from that basis. But you also, as well, you just have to, as the customer, you have to be careful what you say.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You just stick to the facts.
Yeah.
Stick to
your
that.
direct experience.
Right. Don't say, and I heard from my neighbor down the street that he was bankrupt 5 years ago, and this is the second time he's doing it. None of that. Right. So you got to do that. And then let's see. What are some other things? I had another thought, but it escaped me. So
It's all right.
a lot goes. A lot spins
But
around.
I mean, my voice is, I generally will take it to the owner if I have the problem first versus online, because I care about my reputation if I put on. Now, you heard her scare my wife and the gloves come off.
Yeah.
But I'm very focused too,
And
So
we need to
there's, there's those are the pieces to, my view is still pick the battles carefully.
Right. Exactly. And just be prepared from the outset. There are now companies that are trying to insert disparaging clauses where they say, well, we're going to work with you and do this, but you're not allowed to talk negatively about us in social media. And you need to ask the question, why do they even have that in there?
Yeah.
So gone are the days where you can just ignore the fine print. You need to make sure that you read that through, because they're starting to sneak that in, and that should be a big alarm bell.
Yeah, I hope the courts disrupt some of that, just like
Yeah, I think
in
so.
some way.
I think the courts will realize that that's not necessarily something that's enforceable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the future of where this is going to go, because I've been watching some of the videos on singularity for entertainment and other things, and where do you see down the line we're going? Because our world is evolving logarithmically in almost every area. When you say now, the way I explain it in my class is the terrain is like an island with random earthquakes that changes its own terrain, and you need to learn how to live effectively in a world like that.
And we're definitely on a moving walkway, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we're just slowly edging forward. And so a couple things that happen that I'm seeing. One is that we're becoming more proactive. Up until this point, it's been a lot of reactive reputation management, and that is, we make a mistake, we need to clear it up. Now we're starting to see more individuals and companies looking at this and saying, how do I prevent this from happening to me? And so they're taking proactive steps to build out their LinkedIn profile, to clean up their Facebook page, to establish a reputation for themselves. They're writing books or writing a blog to build that credibility. The other thing as well that will happen is that we're actually also getting desensitized to a lot of this stuff. A lot of it's becoming the norm. So that the things that a couple of years ago were sensational, in a couple of years from now, we'll be like, well, we've all done that. We've seen that picture of somebody doing that in college 1,000 times. That's what everybody does. So we are going to have a little bit where the required standard for us to be kind of outraged will raise a little bit. We'll be like, yeah, we've seen that, been there and done that. But it's kind of weird, though, because at the same time, there's this, dare I say, a cesspit of social media where there's like an online lynch mob ready to go at the moment that anybody is slightly offended by anything anybody says. And so there's that interesting, but I think we're going to get tired of that as well. We'll be like, oh, come on, that was clearly a joke.
Right.
There's no need to boycott the company or to have the guy get fired from his job. But we're not quite there yet. But I think I think basically we'll just get a little bit more sensible and level-headed about some of this stuff, and we'll really just be looking for the big stuff where a company has let us down, the CEO is screwed up, the things that really matter to us.
Yeah, because we have seen some examples of social media lynch mobs, that look like witch burnings. If you look and of course, if it's your cause, you don't see it.
Right.
But if it's not your cause, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And I hope some of that levels out as well in the future, because that's not freedom. I mean, if I don't agree with the words you're using, you shouldn't be stoned to death. It's for it.
Just but until we get to that time, everything that you put online, you got to look at this and say,
how will this
could someone be offended by this?
Yeah.
There have been jokes that I've wanted to put online, and I'm like, you know what? There could be someone out there in this minority that might construe this as being whatever, and I'm just not going to put it out there. It's not worth it.
And that's a really important point, because growing up in Washington, and my mother, who was pretty much active in civil rights, in women's rights, I believe now researching it, probably child rights, she was one of the pioneers with it, labor laws, and I really I believe the importance of speaking truth to power. So there's a balance here, where if you're overly careful, you aren't going to take a stand on anything in life.
That is true.
And I think that's an important point. You have to kind of pick. Okay, I'm going to take this stand, and people aren't going to like me for it.
And it's like what you've been saying a couple of times, is like you got to pick your battles.
Yeah.
Is this a hill I want to die on?
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
And there are going to be some things where you're like, no, this goes back to character.
Yeah.
This is what's fundamental to my character. This is what I believe. I'm going to stand up for this. But there are going to be other things where you'll look at this and say, you know what, that's not a big deal for me. I'm not going to get involved with that. I'm not going to comment on it. Social media in particular is still so very new, and we're inventing new rules for it every day, new standards, and so you just have to, until it kind of matures a little bit, it's just kind of be very careful what you say and do.
Choose your battles well.
Unless you are specifically trying to make a point, like you said, where you're trying to get some attention.
Tracker. The last thing I want to wrap up on is just what a cool product, affordable product for businesses to get on the map. And you've worked to keep it current and updating. How has it evolved? And you offer away a trial so they can get on the map and trying it out.
It's come a long way.
Explain what it is to people, because it is a first level. I mean, Google Alerts it's like it's gotten less and less and less and less.
Yeah.
And that was the one I would teach as the first freebie, and then I go, if you want to pay for one, go to Tracker. So talk a little bit about what Tracker is. Tell people what it is as well to understand it.
It's funny you should say Google Alerts come less and less.
Yeah.
When we launched Tracker in 2008, I wanted something better than Google Alerts. In that 6 years,
stand still and you
in that
do
6 years, right? In that 6 years, we've grown and added more features while Google Alerts has shrunk down. It's an exciting time for us. We've added just in the last 12 months or so, we've added automated sentiment analysis for like 13 different languages. We have our influence metrics. We're constantly adding new reporting where you can download PDFs so that you can get your reports all made up for you out of the gate. And we got some cool things that we're working on. Just recently we launched, we've not announced it yet, but we launched, whenever you see a tweet now that matches whatever you're monitoring, you'll see how many retweets and how many favorites it's had. And the same with Facebook, you'll see how many likes and how many shares it's had. So we're constantly adding things that we think add value. It starts at just $97 a month, so we're adding a lot of value anyway, but we want to keep it simple. It's a self-service tool, so we never want to add features just because we can. We look at this and say, does this help the customer, and does it keep it pretty straightforward to use still? We don't want it to just kind of keep making it a Frankenstein's monster where we bolt on different things. So it's a 10-day free trial. We actually give you a trial of our premium plan, which is our mid-tier plan, so you can try out a lot of the features. And in those that are in agencies or PR firms, we have our ultimate plan, which for $447 a month gives you a full white label dashboard so that you can then give your clients a login and let them see your logo, your colors, your URL, and let them monitor their reputation and not even know that we exist as a brand.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great thing. How can people learn more about what you have to offer, Andy, and get, where's the next place to start for them?
Yeah, so the next step would be to go to andybeal.com.
Okay.
That keeps you up to
similar to your name.
Yeah, how about that, right? A reputation guy told me to do that one time.
Right.
So andybeal.com, you'll learn about the books, the projects I'm working on, where I'm speaking, that kind of stuff. So that's the first place to go. You can follow me on Twitter, at Andy Beal, shockingly.
Right.
And I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm in all the usual places that you can think of. But andybeal.com is the best place to start.
Excellent. And the most affordable way is the Kindle book or the book Rept. I mean,
go to reptbook.com. It'll redirect to the Amazon store.
Probably $1,000 of advice you get out of that one book. So
I hope so.
I think so.
I didn't hold anything back on that. But the only difference, the difference between Rept and Radically Transparent is the thickness of the book.
Yeah.
Right. our attention spans have changed a lot. You know, Twitter has gotten us shrunk down to just shorter attention spans. So whereas Ripped was 13, 14 chapters over almost 400 pages, I've managed to consolidate and distill this down into just a couple hundred pages, but it's 30 chapters. So you chapter a day,
piece,
and so you can just read a little piece. Whether you're
you might need a little more than 30 days for some of us. So, but you could do it.
It's something to aspire to.
You could do it. No, I mean you really could. If you set aside and did it, I worked through it. Then you
cool.
could do it.
You can do it. I promise you. You
but don't be upset if you want a few more days. It's worth every penny to take.
If you do it every day for 30 days, I can't guarantee rock hard abs, but you will get a better reputation.
Right, exactly. Well, Andy, it's been great having you, and hope to get you back again. And thanks for all your support in giving things that are, to me, have really helped thousands of people that I've gotten to work with from your materials.
Well, thank you, Martin, and thanks to you, because I know the great work that you do locally and around North Carolina, and you've been a big supporter of the books that I put out there, so I really appreciate you having me back on the show.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Good.